Hi friends, and welcome to a prediction vlog. I guess that's what I'm calling this. I am still sick, so sorry that I sound a little nasally and that I don't look 100% well yet, because I am not. But I did want to get this video out to you. It's been a video that I've been really excited about doing. I did this video last year as well for SPFBO 8 Cassie's version. Essentially what I will be doing is reading the first chapter of all of the SPFBO finalists of the year, and then I'll be predicting my ranking for them based on that first chapter. Last year I was a little bit more analytical. I was introducing Cassie's version and the spreadsheet we were using to grade our finalists. This year, however, I'm not going to be as analytical because you already know that spreadsheet because I use it all year round. I've used it for the semi-finalists. I will still be using that rubric, that system for my finalists. However, for this video and the first chapters, I'm just going with my vibe and feelings, and I'll be giving them a little ranking. Of course, this is nothing definite, this is nothing final, these are just my first initial thoughts. I think a first chapter truly matters for your readers to really engage with them, so this is just something I love to do. I've done it a couple times where I predict my star rating based off first chapters. Now, of course, I have already read one of the finalists because I picked a finalist, so of course, I'm going to start this video off with putting Master of the Void in first place, because who would I be if I didn't think that my pick was gonna win? I need to believe in myself and my reading skills and this author and this incredible story. So we are gonna put this in first place for now. Obviously things can move around while I read more of them. In my personal opinion, Master of the Void has an average first chapter, introduces you to the characters, but it doesn't really pull my attention into what the story is truly about. However, this is just an incredible story, so I don't see it staying on first place based off that first chapter, but who knows? Okay, so I am 3 pages into Daughter of the Beast. There are still 3 more pages in this first chapter, but I wanted to give you an initial reaction. I'm rereading a couple passages. Now I am sick, so that could be a little bit of that my concentration isn't the best. However, I do just find the writing style a little bit more I don't want to say flowery, it's not flowery, but it has a weird pattern to it that is causing me to reread, because I'm wait, did I read that correctly? Because it just didn't flow properly in my brain. Now, that's not taking away from my enjoyment. I really like our main character so far. I do typically like when stories start off as kids. It's something that does work for me. I like to see a progression of the things they go through, and so having our main character be very young at this moment in time is working for me, but I'm not sure if this character stays this young the entire time or not, or I typically like a prologue or a first chapter that gives us a backstory on the character, and then we get a little bit more of a grown-up character, but I'm really intrigued. I'm going to finish the last 3 pages and then I'll get to you with any official ranking and final thoughts. Okay, so my initial thoughts on Daughter of the Beast are quite good. I enjoyed this first chapter quite a bit. I think it's an interesting choice in a fantasy book, especially an epic fantasy book, when they make it first person. I don't typically love it. I definitely am more of a third person omniscient narrator fan in my fantasy books, unless it's a fantasy romance, and then I do like that first person style. But I think that that's going to make this book very interesting to have it stand out a little bit, because not a lot of fantasy books do that, I feel anymore, at least the ones I'm reading. The ending of this first chapter was not what I expected, so I liked that. I like our main character so far. She seems feisty and witty and trying to break the bonds that she's been put in, which is something I really enjoy in a MC, specifically a young female MC. I love when the world is putting rules on them and they're just not gonna listen to those rules and they're gonna escape them, and I think that we're gonna have a character like that. This first chapter didn't tell me a lot about what the actual story is about, but we did just get to know our character. I wish I knew a little bit more about where this was heading, but it has definitely piqued my interest and I'm ready to read the next chapter right now. So I think I'm already gonna put something ahead of Master of the Void. Just in terms of first chapter predictions, when I read the first chapter of Master of the Void versus the first chapter of this, I think Daughter of the Beast catches my interest a little bit more. So yeah, let's do our second read. This dedication on Wickwire Watch is so sweet and sad. Here's the thing, some of these I definitely know more about than others, and the Wickwire Watch is one that I know very, very little, pretty much nothing about. This first chapter was only 3 pages long, so I didn't do like a middle update for you, and it definitely caught my attention. This is probably a book that I would say I was a little scared for. I've heard good things about it, but it isn't my typical style from what I do know about it. But this first chapter has me very, 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 very intrigued. I don't think it necessarily set up the story from what I know. Like, I could not tell you from those 3 pages where this book is gonna go, like, at all. But I'm so intrigued. Like, the last line of this first chapter has me so dang intrigued. And the writing style in this, top tier. This felt very polished to me as I read this first chapter. Nothing was confusing. It all flowed very nicely. It had a good balance of floweriness, but to the point. I really enjoyed that writing style. Am I gonna put this above the other 2? I would not have seen that coming. But intrigue level, I'm excited to learn what this is about. Like, I really, really am. I think I'm gonna put it above. I think it's going above those. Like, what just happened? What is this book about? I don't know. I don't know the answers to any of that, and I want to know. This one is definitely gonna go above Daughter of the Beast, because my intrigue was piqued by that first chapter. That was a strong first chapter in my opinion. 3 pages and it's got ya. So the next one I read was Murder at Spindle Manor. This is not my typical read at all. Like, this is probably the finalist that I am most scared about. And I think the first chapter was really, really well written. The tone of it was good. It fits like the time that it's going for. It fits like the vibe of this like murder mystery, gas lamp style story. That's just like not my vibe. So my intrigue level was really low. I could have put this down at multiple points during that first chapter. It felt too long for me. However, I really liked that last sentence. That last sentence really intrigued me. So no, I don't think it's a terrible first chapter, but it's not a first chapter that really worked for me, and I think that's based on the style of the book, but I do think it's well written, and I'm interested to see where it goes. I think that the world building was really cool. There's like a living doll within this first chapter that I'm excited to learn more about. I think if those elements really pull together throughout the entire novel, I could really end up enjoying this one, even though it's not like my typical type of story or type of book. I think the first chapter is strong, but it didn't pique my interest the way the other 3 have. Probably more of a stylistic choice, just a type of story that I don't typically love. So I am going to put this one under Master of the Void. However, that first chapter had me more excited than I was before I read that first chapter, 100%. I'm excited to give that one a go, and I'm hoping I'll be really surprised and want to pick up more stories like that at the end of this whole thing. Let's do another one. Let's do another one on my Kindle, because I already have it and I'm nice and cozy. I just wanted to pop in here really quickly because I just opened Hills of Heather and Bone, and I honestly knew nothing about this one. I knew that Katie Andrews, I like to call her like an indie darling. I feel like she's pretty big in the indie community, at least like the side of indie community that I am on. She has another book, The Assassins of Grim and Something, that has been on my radar for a really long time. I do own a copy. I'm really interested in reading this one because of who the author is, but this was never a book on my radar, specifically because I thought it was a romance. Honestly, the cover gives me historical romance vibes, and I don't like historical romances. I'm not a historical person in general, so this was one that has been scaring me just because of that. I haven't even read the synopsis. Those were just like my initial assumptions about the book, and so reading the trigger warnings for this has me very interested, because looking at that cover, I expected this just to be like light-hearted historical romance, and I don't think that's what this book is. So I'm excited about that, because that was just an overall assumption. I hadn't looked into this book at all before it was picked as a finalist, and then I was like, oh, I have to read it anyway, so I didn't look into it. This is where like the saying, don't judge a book by its cover. I judge a lot of books by its cover. It's a thing, and your cover really matters in my opinion, but there is a trigger warning. Please be aware that this book contains some scenes of violence, death, depression, mentions of miscarriage, birthing scenes, suicidal thoughts, suicide, and cannibalism. I think this book is going to get a lot deeper than I thought it was. I love a deep book. I love a book that makes me feel things and emotional and to feel disturbed and disgusted by scenes and hopeful and cry. Like, I love feeling things in my stories, so I'm really excited about this. I've heard good things about the author's writing style. My first initial reaction just from the trigger warnings has me a lot more excited about this book than I was before. So let's get into reading the first chapter, and then I can tell you my final thoughts on that first chapter. Okay, that was definitely my least favorite first chapter so far. It's always hard to talk about a chapter when you don't really vibe with it. There was nothing wrong with that chapter per se. I just wasn't very interested. And this is just a first chapter, so like that says nothing about the entire book. I'm still excited to read it and follow these characters throughout, but I am just doing a first chapter prediction. I think that if you're a cozy fan, you could like this a little bit more than I did. It was just a little slice of life. We're learning about our character and what she was doing in the garden and her feelings, and it felt very like cozy and safe to me. The moment that intrigued me the most was there was 2 paragraphs about like the magic system, and I found that very interesting. And I think the ending is supposed to leave you on like a cliffhanger, keep reading, and it didn't really do that for me, but it does tie back into those like 2 paragraphs. I won't say I'm not intrigued because like there was a level of intriguement, but for most of this I just was kind of bored, and that's a personal stylistic choice that like I like to feel on the edge of my seat. I think that this chapter was more like cozying up in a blanket than like being like what is gonna happen next, and like that is a personal preference in stories. I'm not a cozy girl. I know I'm not a cozy girl, so we will see where this one lies, because based off the last sentence, I'm not 100% sure this is going to be cozy, especially with those trigger warnings and stuff. But the writing style of that first chapter definitely felt cozy, and that just didn't work for me. So I am putting this one on the bottom of the list so far. It will go underneath Murder at Spindle Manor. Apparently, okay, I already knew this, but apparently a short first chapter really works for me. I just like short chapters in general. I feel like they leave me hanging. They leave me wanting to read more. This was a 2-page, 1.5 page, I would say a 1-page pretty much first chapter, and I really liked it. It just gives me intrigue. It just has set me to like want to keep reading. Like, I don't even know what to say, because like nothing really happened in that. We didn't learn that much about our protagonist, because I think it's told in someone else's POV that's not our protagonist moving forward. But I am so interested in our protagonist from this chapter. I like the outsider watching her style choice. I think that it just added to like a mystery element of getting to know this person. I like the writing style quite a bit. It's not too flowery for me, but has got a decent amount of description. My intrigue is just like so high, but like I understand that nothing happened. If I was using my rating system, this would score low because it told me nothing about the plot of the book. It told me nothing really about our characters. It did a little bit of world building, and I liked the writing style and I enjoyed it. So I think it would score low because it didn't fulfill all 5 categories very well. But because I'm not doing that, I'm really just going off of my intrigue and enjoyment, and this places it quite high for me. There is I think a little bit of world building with like this last sentence, but like the rest of it, is it world building? It could be, but like I don't know, but like I want to keep reading, and that's like what I'm looking for in a first chapter, is something to just get me hooked and make me want to keep reading. I think I'm going to place this underneath Daughter of the Beast and above Mastery of the Void. I think it's going to come in 3rd for intrigue level. I do think Daughter of the Beast being a little bit longer sets up a little bit more of the things I'm really interested in, but this being like literally a page long does its job and has me like top 3 currently. Okay, let's talk. I am not far into this first chapter, and I figured I would give you some initial reactions. I'm not done it yet, but I'm not loving it. I think it's doing a really good job of setting up the characters, but the writing style and the tone of it is just not working for me. I think it's gonna be a setting thing for me. The only other, like, Western I've read would be Mistborn Era 2, and I don't even know if that fully counts, and I didn't like that either. I haven't continued past the first book because the, like, stylistic choices of a Western, they just don't work for me, and I think that this is gonna be that way too. I don't even like them in TV shows or movies. Like, I'm not a Western fan. I've liked a couple that were, like, Western sci-fi. Like, I enjoyed the first season of Westworld, and I enjoyed, obviously, Firefly, which is, like, a Western in space. But, like, I don't know if a Western is my style, and I'm really struggling with this first chapter because of that. However, I do think we're really getting to know the backstory of our character, so I think a lot of people will like that. And, like, there's no complaints with the actual writing style, besides it's not working for me. However, let's finish this first chapter, and I'll get back to you in a little bit. Okay, I finished the first chapter of Cold West. I'm really hoping that this will surprise me overall, because if not, I didn't love this. I really did not love this first chapter. This is the first one where I read the first chapter and I thought, wow, this book is not for me. There is no way without SPFBO I would be picking this book up. It's just not my vibe. Struggled reading it. There is, like, a flashback that happens that really confused me because I wasn't sure if it was, like, present day or flashback. I don't know if that was the point, but I didn't like being confused. I also just, like, didn't like our main character. He feels so surface level in his choices right now for me, and I'm hoping that we get a little bit more definition. I mean, it was just a first chapter, so, like, there is time for him to grow and for me to, like, understand his choices throughout the story, and I hope that that's the case. But just deciding to, like, up and go is not something I find relatable, and I'm struggling with his motives for doing that. And, like, I just didn't connect to the story within this first chapter at all. This is going in the bottom, and I don't see it leaving the bottom with the last couple that I have to read. I'm gonna go into this book with, like, open eyes. Like, I always want to be surprised by books. Part of the reason I loved doing this competition last year, and why I'm so excited to do it officially this year, was for the fact that I get to try books that I would never pick up. For example, Small Miracles last year was a book I would have never picked up, and I quite enjoyed it, and I'm so happy I picked it up. So I'm hoping that this competition does that again for me, and I'm hoping that Cold West is a pleasant surprise as I read more. But based on that first chapter, it is going to the bottom of the pile. It just did not work for my personal preferences. I feel like I'm eating my words a little bit because I read the first chapter of Arrival Most Vile, and I think it might go under Cold West. This one just had no intrigue for me. I think a lot of people are going to love it because in some ways it reminds me of Legends and Lattes. It was very cozy. Like, this was just, there was no plot to this. Well, there's plot. I want epic plot. I am an epic plot lover, and I can tell that this is just setting up a cozy story. A shop that is across the street from another shop, and they're gonna be rivals, and then I'm pretty sure they're going to end up falling in love or something. And I just, like, have no intrigue in it, and that first chapter did nothing for me. It didn't entertain me. For my personal preference, I think I could struggle my way through that one a little bit in terms of, like, intrigue. However, it reminds me of Legends and Lattes. I still enjoyed Legends and Lattes. It's not a book that I hate or despised. It was just an average read for me, and I think I might feel similar to that on this book. I think that they're gonna give me same vibes of just, like, being a good time, but not being a story that lasts and sits with me, and I think that's kind of the point of cozy, but I definitely like to feel a lot more within my stories than what a cozy is giving to you. I think that's why, like, I'm not the biggest fan of them most of the time. So I think in terms of intrigue level, I am more excited to see the plot of Cold West than I am of this. So I think I'm going to put this at the bottom. It just didn't work for me. And I truly understand that that is a personal preference thing. And I keep saying it, I'm very excited to be shocked. I want to love every single book on this list. Like, that is my goal, in life. It's just love books. Okay, I'm literally 2 paragraphs in, and this MC, I think I'm vibing with. I think I'm vibing with this MC. This is funny. That's good. Let's get back into it. Okay, I read the first chapter of The Fall Is All There. As you saw, I really liked the first 2 sentences, pretty much. I thought that they were really funny, and I thought that I was going to really like the tone of the story, and I still do think that that is true. I like a main character truly that is a big personality, and I do think our main character in this will have a big personality. I'm a little skeptical that it's going to become too much within the story. I think that it can easily overpower the story. As I read on, I do think my intrigue went down a little bit because within this first chapter, it is quite a long first chapter. It's 20 pages. I just kept getting more confused, and I am not a reader who likes to be confused. I'm not necessarily a reader who is a trust the author kind of reader, especially when it's an author I've never read from before. That kind of brought down my enjoyment because I could tell that the author was confusing us to then lead to like a reveal later on. It just wasn't 100% working for me. I've heard not a lot about this besides that it's really, 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 really weird. I've heard a lot of people like it, I guess, but that it's weird. I'm not sure weird is for me, but I am intrigued from that first chapter. I think that first chapter does set up a lot of background politics. It sets up our character personality. I think that it could set up the world a little bit better than it did, but there is like little elements of it. Considering it's so long, I could have seen it doing these things a little bit better. Overall, I think it was a strong first chapter, and I'm intrigued to read the rest and feel how I feel about this book later on. I think I'm going to put this one under Master of the Void. I'm still really intrigued by it, but it's not like unputdownable for me. Like some of the others I could have just kept reading. Okay, we have our last read, The Last Fang of God. I didn't plan for that, but I kind of like it. So let's dive right into The Last Fang of God. Okay, our last and final first chapter has been read, and I quite enjoyed this one. I wasn't expecting wolves, which is really dumb considering, like, you look at this cover and the title, but I just thought it was going to be like any other fantasy series that has, like, a vague interpretation of some, like, god or something. So I did like that element with, like, the wolves and the blood. I thought there was a lot of interesting elements within this. I did get a little bit confused. Not the way the last one confused me in terms of, like, it's written to be confusing. This one is confusing because, like, we just don't have all the pieces yet. So it's not like it's actually confusing, like I don't understand, but it's like I want to understand, and I'm just not being given all the information yet. So obviously I can't understand, and I enjoyed that about this one. I kind of wish I had gotten to know my characters a little bit better. I think that this was more world building setup, and I do love a world. I am always intrigued by world building. I find fantasy worlds, like, so interesting. It's my favorite part of reading fantasy. I enjoyed that, but I do kind of wish a little bit more character work had been put into this. Maybe a little bit more plot. Like, I can't tell you where this story is going based off that first chapter at all. I did enjoy this one. I think I'm going to put this one under Master of the Void and above The Fall Is All There. It is one that I'm really interested in, and I think I'm going to enjoy quite a bit. I liked the writing style. Really interested to see where this one goes in terms of all of that. And I love the cover. So that's it. Those are my first chapter predictions for SPFBO 9. I'm excited to see how much this changes. Last year it changed quite a bit. If I remember correctly, A Touch of Light was quite far down based off first chapter, and it ended up winning for me. And I had one of the ones that I thought was really high up ended up being quite low in my score ranking last year. So I'm really excited to see, like, where everything falls this year. I like to see how my initial reactions hold up as I continue reading. So this is just a fun video for me. Again, it really means nothing for my overall rating. I'm not going into this book, like, I put it in second place, my first chapter prediction, so it needs to be in second place at the end. That's not, we're reading for fun and enjoyment, and I review for those reasons. Anyways, if you made it all the way to the end of this video and you'd like to leave me an emoji to say you were here, leave me a wolf emoji. And then if you want to connect with me on other platforms, my Bookstagram, my book Twitter, my Goodreads, and my Patreon are all linked down below. I am going to go cuddle up in bed and make myself feel better because I think I started to sound worse as this video went on. So yeah, see you guys soon.